All right, the book talks about knowledge workers who increasingly have to depend on computer technology to do their work. Now, knowledge workers aren't everyone who works for a business. Some people are task workers. They kind of do the same thing over and over and over again. But there are certain people who have to do some real thinking. So not only are they creating and finding and processing information, but they're also synthesizing it, summarizing it, or comparing maybe 1 week to another week's sales, or 1 year to another year, and analyzing this information before they can make a decision, before they can go on to the next step. So they need to be pretty comfortable with information technology, and they need to be pretty smart. Okay, so I was talking about knowledge workers. Some examples of knowledge workers are production managers, product managers, financial analysts, who have some of the skills that hopefully you're picking up in some of your various business courses here at Delta State. They use both structured and unstructured. Structured means that it's kind of always the same, and unstructured means they just have to gather information from wherever they can, and they have to know where to get this information. So knowledge work, according to our author, is non-repetitive. You might have to do something different every day, as opposed to a task worker who does kind of the same thing all the time. He or she might have 20 things they do, but it's the same 20 things they do over and over again. So I think the big point is this idea that the knowledge worker has to have a kind of a big picture of what's going on in an organization. And I've worked for a couple of companies, back before I was a teacher, where I got a job and I was trained how to do a particular thing. And that's all I knew. I didn't know what anybody else was doing. As long as I did my job, and I didn't make mistakes, no one would say anything to me. But I really didn't have an understanding of what I was doing, how that impacted other people. And this is what a knowledge worker should have an understanding of. And this is what this kind of enterprise software is supposed to give you the ability to do, that you can see what's going on. I'm in the accounting department, but I can check what's going on in the warehouse. I can check what's going on in the purchasing department. I can see the status of an order, and I can do that no matter what department I work in, because there it is. All that information is contained within that system. And these enterprise systems are basically database systems where they store all this information, but also produce reports and other things as well. Okay, so in comparison, or compared to the knowledge worker, you have the kind of narrowly focused task worker, which most of you will probably be when you first get jobs. But as you hopefully advance in your career, you get more of an understanding of the big picture, and hopefully get some promotions, become higher level managers. So the skills that a knowledge worker has is understanding the big picture, being able to think strategically, not just what's happening today, but what's happening for the rest of this month, or what's happening, or maybe in what's happening this quarter, or what's going to happen a year from now. What are we heading towards? And this is kind of managers are concerned with these things. Then having a process view, understanding how one process leads into another process, leads into another process, which this is just an introductory chapter. The subsequent chapters are going to really focus in on certain processes and how they build upon each other and so on. So they have to be very computer literate and be able to find and use the needed information. Also, the ability to communicate and work in teams. How many times have you heard that? That today's worker needs to be comfortable with technology, but also needs to be able to communicate. Okay, so what is a business process? It's a sequence of tasks that, as Alicia mentioned earlier, it has certain inputs, and we're working towards some kind of desired output. The key processes, but there's dozens and dozens of processes, but the three sort of main general processes: procurement, fulfillment, and production. So understand what those are. I think it's odd that they put it in that order. It seems to me it should be procurement, production, and fulfillment comes last, but that's the way the author has this PowerPoint. So here's what a diagram of just a generic process looks like. You have some kind of input, and certain things happen, certain processing things happen. Just to give you a simple example, I'm going to alphabetize names. Well, first I have to input those names, and then I have to click on alphabetize, and then I might have to click or sort. Then I have to click on ascending or descending. So that's a real simple example. But any process usually has a series of steps before you get to the output. The example, the business example that the book's going to focus on is this little skateboard company. So what does this company do? What are some of the processes in this skateboard company? They make skateboards. They have to order the parts, the individual parts. What are some parts of a skateboard? Well, there's the board, and there's the wheels, and there's nuts and bolts, and the design that goes on the skateboard, maybe some kind of decal or painting or whatever. So they get the parts from somewhere else, and because some companies make their own parts and also put things together, but most companies that make a final product usually get their parts elsewhere because it's usually cheaper to get. Because one skateboard company is just one skateboard company, but there's maybe 100 skateboard companies in the country, and there's vendors who sell to all these companies, so they can sell more cheaply than you can make it. So they buy parts, and even the buying process has certain steps, which the book will get into in much detail, and talks about different people who perform these steps. There's a guy in the warehouse, and the purchasing person, then the warehouse receives parts, and then the production management. And of course, all this time, the accounting department is keeping track of it. So they make it, and then they sell it, and there are several steps in the selling process. And being aware of, again, having the big picture, who performs these steps. So here's an example. First, a purchase requisition is created by someone working in the warehouse. That is sent over to the purchasing department, a separate department. That's where bookkeeping is done. They prepare a purchase order. They also choose the vendor. Like who has the best? Maybe there's a sale this week, or if you buy in quantity, this vendor gives you a better deal, something like that. Or let me tell you about my sister. What a great gig she had one time. Have you ever heard of Quickie? The company that makes kitchen products like mops and sponges. Walmart and all these companies sell. It's one of the brands of cleaning products. Well, she worked for this company, a very large company up in New Jersey. She was a purchaser, right? She was told how many we need to buy. This week we need to buy 1,000 components, broom handles or whatever, to make our broom or a mop. So she would call her vendors. Like, okay, if you buy this, if you make this order from us, and what they would constantly give her were tickets to professional sports events. She got Phillies tickets, she got New York Yankee Mets tickets, she got New York Giant tickets, she got, for me, she got U.S. Open tennis tickets, which is going on right now. I've gone to a couple of Major League Baseball games. And whenever we went to the ball game, we had second row seats right behind the dugout. The best seats. And of course, she gave the best things, like some playoff and World Series tickets. She wouldn't give to me. She gave to her son and her husband, of course, who were huge fans. But we went up to this USTA match in around 2000. She has this whole suite. An air-conditioned suite. It's a beautiful room about this big, all this, comfortable couches. The refrigerator was full of shrimp and all kinds of imported beer. There was scotch, on the. And this is just so she would buy from this vendor. And she had tickets for an entire weekend, like the week before the finals. So if you like some, extra goodies. Now, if you're in politics, you can't accept this. But if you're in business, you can accept these things. It's not really bribery. It's just an enticement. So if you like to get little extra bonuses and so on, a purchasing department for a big company can be a really lucrative, because it's a really high-pressure type job. Because if you make a mistake and you don't get something ordered in time, and then the factory can't make something, they don't have the raw materials to make something, you're in big trouble. But if you do your job right, good pay and lots of benefits. Anyway, she creates purchase orders. Then the vendor will send the the goods, and you'll receive them. There has to be some paperwork for that, or some receipt that you actually. The warehouse guy will check off to see if you got the right quantity. We'll check to see if there's anything broken, or if there's anything back ordered. There's a whole bunch of processes. So each one of these things have a bunch of other processes. The company receives, we'll go to the accounting department, we'll receive the invoice, and then, of course, the accounting department, accounts payable, will have to make payment on this. So a whole bunch of processes just to get something in the warehouse.